before we think about why COP26 is so important for investors, we just think about the report that came out from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, in recent months, really making it clear that climate change is unequivocally a man-made issue, that it's having a severe impact on our weather and climate patterns now. This is no longer something that's going to be important or a high risk for future generations. So the impacts from climate change are clearly being felt here and now. And I think there's really high hopes riding on COP26, which is the big UN climate conference. And there's really high hopes that government will take much bolder action, much more decisive action to really start to address climate and the decarbonisation of our economies. That still looks complex and very challenging. There is, at the moment, a consideration around the kind of strength of intergovernmental relations and how governments will be able to come together and actually make those commitments that are going to help us to deliver the agreements that were made in Paris over 5 years ago. In terms of why this is important for investors, there's really two pieces. The first is the kind of physical risk that we see from climate change. So how are these extreme weather events impacting companies, impacting supply chains, impacting individuals' health, costs for the insurance industry? How are they impacting agricultural supply chains and agricultural productivity? These are all of the kinds of things on the physical side that increasingly investors need to understand for their portfolios. And then on the transition side, transition risk, what happens if governments do increase the level of regulatory ambition, if they do introduce more policies that accelerate the speed of decarbonisation within our economies, and how does that impact different industries and companies, and where do the risks and the opportunities fall out from that?
We think that the ambitions of some countries, especially the larger GDP countries, are going to have a gravitational impact on the rest of the world. This could be through just pressure because of the supply chains and the interdependencies that we have as a global economy, or specifically in the context of if there are carbon border adjustment taxes that are developed by certain countries. And so trying to understand the potential implications from a higher implied carbon price is something that we think is going to be increasingly important in the scenario analysis we do for our companies that we own around the world. Another piece of this is trying to understand industry by industry how an inevitable policy response to climate change, some of which could happen very soon given COP26 and the pressure, how that's likely to impact different industries. And most notably, you look at the key industries of the power sector, the transportation sector, and even buildings in terms of energy efficiency within buildings. These three sectors alone contribute to the majority of emissions in the world, and trying to understand how these sectors are going to grapple with expected regulatory shifts is going to be really important. So our job as active investment managers at Lazard is to really try to deconstruct the possible policy implications and to do scenario analysis on an industry by industry basis and try to price in the idiosyncratic risk or opportunities that the companies that we own are likely to face.